So is it possible that Donald Trump could get away with letting millions of Americans die and not be held responsible? Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. I mean, there's a joke floating around the internet that says, you wanna know how to get a, how do you know if you have the coronavirus, right? How do you find that out? And the punchline is cough in a rich person's face and then wait for their test to come back. Right. I mean, the rich and powerful, Rand Paul got tested. He wasn't even symptomatic, but hey, he's got the virus. The rich and powerful are having no problem getting tested. The rest of us, it ain't happening. And in fact, in large parts of the country, even the rest of us with severe symptoms are not getting tested. So the question is, what do we do about this? I mean, well, actually, the question goes beyond that. I mean, the United States and South Korea diagnosed their first cases on the same day, toward the end of January. South Korea activated their pandemic response team that day, and within a week, they had approved, and my apologies for the kind of rattling noise that you hear in the background. I'm doing this show from my home office, and there's a little balcony right outside the window, and above the balcony is kind of a cloth, roof, I guess. And we're getting a wind here. When the winds come out of I guess it must be the south here, they bang that thing around, and I've tightened it up as much as I can, so we'll just have to put up with that noise. Anyhow, so, in South Korea, when they had their first case of this, the first thing they did was, within a week, they had gotten World Health Organization approval for a test kit that actually worked, and they'd gotten a couple of South Korean manufacturers cranking them out, and within 2 weeks, they were testing people. They've now tested over 300,000 people. They've tested about 1 in 15 people in South Korea. Well, we're not even close. Trump instead chose not to put back into place the two different pandemic teams that he had fired 2 years ago. And instead, he gave responsibility to the coronavirus to Jared and Mike Pence. And Jared asked his brother-in-law to ask for advice on Facebook. His brother-in-law is a doc. And he took that Facebook advice from this docs group on Facebook and put together a computer printout of suggestions for people that Trump passed out last, I think it was Wednesday. Mike Pence chose to do basically nothing. And so the world is watching as American hospitals are begging people to sew masks and protective clothing in their homes. And construction companies are donating them to the hospitals. Over in the Senate, you got Mitch McConnell. He's trying to come up with a $500 billion slush fund that foreclosure king Steve Mnuchin can give to anyone he wants with absolutely no oversight, no accountability, no rules, and no ability for the public to ever know where the money went. You think Mnuchin and Trump might have some specific friends in mind here? And now the media is reporting that Trump is getting tired of social distancing. He's refusing to even model social distancing in his press conferences and demanding that his people cluster close to him, while Axios is reporting that Trump wants to encourage Americans to forget about the quarantine and go back to work so the market will go back up and he'll get reelected. Oh, and he wants his hotels bailed out as soon as possible. Epidemiologists tell us the worst case scenario here is 2 million dead Americans. Now, we've got 330, I believe, million people in America. If half of us get sick, that's 165 million Americans. If 1% of them get sick, that's 1.65 million Americans sick. Or dead, if 1% of them die. Now, that's assuming 1%. I mean, we're seeing death rates as high as 9% in some places. So, Trump famously said that he could kill somebody on Fifth Avenue in New York City and people would still vote for him. So the question, I guess, for the day and for the hour, certainly, and by the way, Congressman Ro Khanna is going to be with us in the third hour of our program today, taking your calls for the full hour. I guess the question for the day is, if Trump allows a million or 2 million people in America to die, will he get away with it? I mean, he's done nothing but make this situation worse. And now he's making it clear, he tweeted last night at 10 minutes to midnight, "We cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself." And I shout that because he tweeted it in all caps. Axios reports President Trump and some of his senior officials are losing patience with the doctor's order. They're watching stocks tumble and unemployment skyrocket. So, therefore, over in the Senate, they're saying, oh, this is the perfect reason, the perfect excuse to give $500 billion to our friends, to the airlines, and to all of our good buddies. Now, keep in mind, the airlines who want $50 billion for a bailout took $42 billion over the last 10 years in tax cuts and bought back their own stock. In other words, that money ended up in the pockets of the CEO and the main stockholders. So, but Trump is losing patience, and he's the New York Times said at the White House, there's been a growing sentiment that medical experts were allowed to set policy that has hurt the economy, and there's been a push to find a way to let people start returning to work. Quote, President Trump began talking privately late last week about reopening the nation. The president started talking about how to get people back to work around Thursday. So here we are, right? And then we had an expert embedded inside China. And, with the knowledge of the Chinese. Her name was Dr. Linda Quick. She was an American CDC employee, and her job was to be inside China, embedded in China's equivalent of the CDC, their disease control agency. And her job was to basically liaison between the Chinese CDC and the American CDC in the event of a pandemic outbreak in China. Well, back in July of last year, 5 months before the outbreak, Trump decided that that's a waste of time and money and defunded the site, defunded her, got rid of her. I mean, she'd been there. I'm not sure how long she had been there, but that role has been filled for quite some time. Bao Pingzhu, a Chinese American who served in that role, worked between 2007 and 2011. And Zhu said if someone had been there, public health officials and governments across the world could have moved much faster. Yeah, you think? And scientists are saying, we really can stop this in the United States, but we have to shut down the entire country for 14 days. The entire country. And instead, Trump has done almost the exact opposite. Trump is doing what Italy did. And if we want to stop this, we need to do what China and Taiwan and Japan and South Korea did. They all have this under control. There are now more people, dying every day in Italy than in China at the peak of the outbreak. It's amazing. So you think Trump is going to get away with this?